I will always throw my support behind the farming community. Some amazing texts already. One I want to read to you from Peter. It says, all Conservative politicians should come out of Parliament and give physical support to the farmers' demonstration this week. They are the most important in our society, says Sophia, not the train drivers who've just had a pay rise and never turn up on time.
Well, I wouldn't like to make comparisons, but and I hope that more than just Conservative politicians will come out. I hope that there's a lot of new Labour MPs who've been elected in rural constituencies, and I know that they've been hearing some heart-rending stories about family farms and inheritance, and the fact that people are looking at having to sell up farms which have been in the same family for generations. And they're the ones who need to send a message back to the Chancellor and to the Prime Minister that this policy is wrong. And not particularly because they're targeting people who might be trying to avoid inheritance tax, but because where they've aimed is the wrong place. And the people who are really going to get hurt by this are the family farmers who are the backbone of the countryside.
Tim, do me a favour, explain in layperson's, you see, I can't even say layman's terms, nowadays, the people, you're right, will look at it and go, they've got £1 million house, of course they should pay tax. Just explain why this is so unfair, this policy announced in the budget to the farming community in Great Britain.
Essentially, it's about the economics of farming, and those economics are not sane in most places. If you have a farm which is on paper worth £4-5 million, the figures show that you'll be lucky to make you'll make less than 1% return annually on the asset value. So you're making 50 grand. You're not making a huge amount of money, and there's plenty of people with big farms which on paper have a great asset value, but actually are making very little money. And for them, that asset value is nominal anyway, because they're never going to sell it. All they want to do is to pass that farm on to the next generation in the same or better condition that they inherited it from the one before. I've got a friend who's a seventh-generation farmer in Wales. He doesn't make a lot of money. He has a lot of sheep and works bloody hard. And technically, the half the mountain he owns apparently is worth a huge amount of money. If he dies tomorrow, his heirs will have to find 20% of that, over £1 million, in order to survive and keep that farm going. That's why people are so angry, and not just that, but also because the Labour Party told them specifically before the election that they weren't going to do this. It is the classic broken promise. They stood there, they said they're not going to do it, and now they say, oh, we're going to do it, and you can do tax planning. Well, if you told us 7 years ago, people might have been able to. It's a really nasty piece of legislation in how it affects elderly people in particular in the farming community. And there's a lot of people who are really upset, and it's a great worry to all of us.
I understand that, and I'm so glad that you can explain it. And interestingly, you touched upon the depth of anger, and I think in a very short space of time, what is it, 4 months, I believe that, well, they've managed to alienate pensioners in this country. I don't care. That, for me, is his poll tax moment in a heartbeat, Keir Starmer. It doesn't go away. We can talk about veterans on the streets. We can talk about students, farming community. The farming community is the lifeblood of this country for all sorts of reasons. And people will not forget, and I think it's very interesting what you just said, that you as a community, as an industry, were told by the Labour Party before they were elected that this would not happen. That comes down to trust. If you don't trust your government, things ultimately change. And I'm surprised, Tim, because the last government, quite rightly, were hounded from office because nobody in the end could trust a word they were saying. He's done quite the same job in a short space of time, hasn't he, Starmer?
It is, and it's bizarre politics, because they spent a lot of time and effort courting the farming vote and the rural vote before the election. I mean, Keir Starmer was going to the NFU conference, the farmers' conference, talking to them, telling them that he understood how, the depth of feeling behind family farms. And there was apparently a fundamental change of attitude. They admitted they'd got things wrong and they wanted a different relationship with the countryside. And I do. I mean, some people think that I'm too kind. I think this is cock-up. This is a cock-up. This isn't conspiracy. This is a policy which was lifted off a shelf in the Treasury. They said, oh, well, it only affects a few people. That's what the Treasury were telling them. There's a slightly idealised view in some parts of the Labour Party, a bit of a Ladybird book image of farming. It's an old boy sitting on a tractor and 50 acres. That's not how farming works. If you're going to support your family, and you're going to support your parents as well, probably, which most farms do, you are going to need a big chunk of land.
A Labour peer today,
500 acres.
A Labour peer today has warned that his party is too urban and doesn't understand the impact of this taxation, and that it will actually destroy large swathes of the countryside because of what it will do to the rural community. And like you, I don't know, I mean, when you say to me that has to be a mistake, I don't understand who advises these people, the comms for these people, because, as I say, you know, with respect, in a very short space of time, pensioners, farmers, these are the lifeblood of this country. People who have paid their stamp, worked to their fingers to the bone. I think it's extraordinarily bad. Just very quickly, a minute to go. There's going to be a big, up to 40,000 they expect at this London Farming Forum and NFU marches. Jeremy Clarkson, the pioneer really of that programme, has brought great awareness. What do you want from the government? To drop this policy as soon as possible? Do you think that's viable?
Well, no, I think this is really important. They don't have to do a U-turn. There are people who have bought agricultural land, farmland, in order to avoid inheritance tax. There's no doubt about that. That's what they say they're trying to address. If that's true, they can tweak this. They can do this in a way where it doesn't affect farmers. There are plenty of clever people who've been paid lots of money in the Treasury, and you can find a way of allowing one generation of a farming family to pass to the other without selling. No one wants any money out of this. No one wants to liquidate the asset, to pass that on without inheritance tax. That's what needs to happen. And they can do that, and we can all go home happy.